Alright, look, by now everyone has heard of the anti-PG horror argument. Since its inception in the mid-80s, the PG-13 rating has acted as a go-between for films which are a bit too intense for kids, but have also done nothing to earn an adults-only R rating. The category itself was originally created after a flood of concerned parents complained about the 1-2 punch of massively successful dark kids films in 1984, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and Gremlins. And it served a purpose, ensuring preteens weren't exposed to the sight of torn-out, still-beating human hearts, or Phoebe Cates' disturbing, darkly funny story of how she discovered there was no Santa. But after a spate of gory slasher flicks filled cinemas in the 90s post-Scream's revival of the subgenre, the early noughties saw a new trend in the form of Japanese horror reimaginings and cleaner slasher remakes. These hits infamously avoided gore to earn a PG-13 rating and maximise their audiences, and many of them avoided any solid scares in the process. But despite the rating's reputation as a dumping ground for sanitised remakes and bloodless bores, the PG-13 horror can be a formidable beast whose deceptively goreless surface can mask serious scares, as epitomised by these 10 gems. I am Kirsten from WhatCulture, and these are 10 best PG-13 horror films. Number 10, The Sixth Sense. As if solely to flex on the premise of this list, infamous dud director / occasional instant classic Helmer, M. Night Shyamalan's blockbuster mystery The Sixth Sense doesn't just prove that a PG horror can, in fact, prove terrifying. Instead, the filmmaker goes one further and proves that a PG horror which was inspired by a PG horror series, R.L. Stein's Goosebumps, can still make for pants-shitting terror, or pants-jizzing terror in the case of The Lonely Island. This somber, scary Haley Joel Osment vehicle remains the gold standard against which any future PG horrors are measured. The simple story of a troubled psychologist who helps a young boy cope with his unwanted ability to see the dead, the film's infamous twist still packs a hell of a punch almost 2 decades later. But it's the terrifying brief appearance by future OC star Misha Barton as an ailing ghost girl which assures that this one earns a place on this list, as the horror would be nowhere near as effective without this shocking scene which somehow made its way past censors in 1999. Number 9, Before I Wake. The Haunting of Hill House creator / everyone's new favourite horror director Mike Flanagan has helmed a diverse variety of genre outings over the years, from the Lovecraftian Absentia to the convoluted Oculus to the sparse, harsh and brutally simple slasher Hush. But 2015's Before I Wake saw the helmet in unusually poignant form, a side of horror which The Sixth Sense proved the PG-13 rating can accommodate. This slice of fantasy horror is as much a story of growing up and letting go as it is a piece of effective but gore-free horror cinema, as the Miss Thomas Jane struggles with Room's Jacob Tremblay and his creepy dreams which seem to come alive at night. Tense and effective, Before I Wake is also a moving mystery whose creepy monster takes on a tragic significance in the film's closing scenes. It's a daring piece of emotionally resonant horror, and one which excels not only thanks to the phenomenal Tremplay's measured performance, but also because the PG-13 rating ensures the action never becomes as brutally bleak as the director's later Netflix series. Number 8, Drag Me to Hell. From the sublime and sad to the agreeably ridiculous and anically madcap, Evil Dead creator Sam Raimi's funhouse horror comedy Drag Me to Hell doesn't pull any punches despite its rating, and it's actually a surprise the filmmaker secured the kid-friendlier PG-13 in the first place. The darkly funny story sees Big Fish's Alison Lohman star as a mild-mannered bank teller who simply can't see why she should be cursed for evicting an old lady unable to pay her mortgage. And the flick's anarchically gory and gleefully sick satire sees her reduced to gradually darker depths to shake this hex. Cue all manner of kitten sacrificing, human eyes appearing in slices of cake, an anvil to the head worthy of the Looney Tunes, and so much vomit, including a puked up cat which viewers really didn't see coming. Somehow, despite this violent and gruesome EC Comics inspired fun and hysterically brutal ending, the film somehow managed to wrangle a PG-13 rating upon release. Maybe someone in the MPAA was annoyed at bankers. Anything happen around 2009 to prompt that? Number 7, The Ring. The original runaway success, which prompted a slew of lesser imitators in the years that followed, Pirates of the Caribbean director Gore Verbinski's 2002 J-horror remake The Ring set the early noughties horror trend by replacing hulking masked murderers like Jason Voorhees and Michael Myers with lank-haired ghost girls. The difference between this flick and the many knockoffs that followed, though, was that The Ring actually managed to be scary. So how did it succeed where Pulse, Dark Waters, One Missed Call, Shutter, and even its own sequel mess up? Shout out to 2004's The Grudge, though, which almost earned a place here. The difference comes in The Ring's daringly slow pace and bracingly dark backstory, both of which allows its sharp jump scares and inventive mystery to succeed in the absence of more explicit shocks. A film with a less oppressively dark, meditative atmosphere would make a boat set horse attack ridiculous. Number 6. A Quiet Place. Unbearably tense, The Office star / David Foster Wallace adapter John Krasinski's 2018 post-apocalyptic horror A Quiet Place is bleak and brutal, but nowhere near as bloody as you remember. This one had an easier time than most PG-13 horrors in pulling off its story successfully, and there's 2 reasons for that. First off, the movie opens with the audacious decision to kill off a small child. Yes, it happens off screen, but it's nonetheless a line many R-rated horrors never cross, and as such it's immediately clear Krasinski's vicious flick isn't messing around. Second, the premise of sound-sensitive monsters, although it was fumbled by the same year's The Silence, allows the filmmakers to build endless tense set pieces out of the possibility that our tiny cast may be discovered. Where gorier slashers and even many monster movies such as the same year's lesser Bird Box stuff the screen with characters only to off them, the tiny cast of A Quiet Place ensures that every potential death carries massive emotional weight. This negates the need for more gore and makes for a far scarier, more involving cinematic experience. Number 5. 1408. Yes, this may be the 3rd time that we at WhatCulture have recommended this flick in the last few weeks, but it can't be avoided. This film is just that good. Derailed director Michael Hafstrom's still somehow underrated Stephen King adaptation 1408 takes the simple story of the same name from the collection Everything's Eventual and runs with its premise, containing its action to the lone location of a haunted hotel room. With only Say Anything hero John Cusack on screen for much of its runtime, the flick has to pull off some ingenious tricks to keep the creepy setting interesting. But ghosts in windows, ghouls in the vents, an impossible floor plan, and a tragic backstory for our troubled hero all make for compelling, scary viewing. And as for Samuel L. Jackson berating him from inside the minibar, well, what more could horror fans want? This triumphant piece of PG-13 horror eschews the gory torture porn trend, which was in vogue circa its 2007 release, in favour of a more classic brand of haunted house scares, and it's a timeless contribution to the genre as a result. Number 4. The Final Girls. Released in 2015, a very Harold and Kumar Christmas director, Todd Strauss-Schulson, sees the Helmer come to terms with the screenwriter's strange experience of seeing his dear dad die repeatedly on screen. He's the son of The Exorcist star Jason Miller. A triumphant horror comedy, this Taser Farmiga starring effort sees the nun star play a bereaved college student who is sucked into the corny 80s slasher film her late mum starred in, only to meet said mum and bond with her whilst 80s horror hijinks surround the pair on all sides. With a stellar cast including Pitch Perfect's Adam Devine, Arrested Development's Alia Shawkat, and The Hunger Games' Alexander Ludwig playing against type as a likeable love interest, this slasher send-up succeeds in the absence of any gore thanks to a surprisingly poignant script, which lends the few deaths real emotional heft. It's an unusual but impressive mashup of throwback slasher spoof, poignant family drama, and teen comedy, but one that works well and is well worth a watch for the Heartbreak Kid star Malin Akerman's career best turn as the non-final girl alone. Number 3. Happy Death Day. Another slasher spoofing horror comedy from the 2010s, which uses the genre to frame its quietly poignant story of a girl coming to terms with her mum's death, Happy Death Day is evidence that even the most specific ideas can be pulled off in wildly different and original ways. Like The Final Girls, this effort from Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse director Christopher Langdon didn't need an R rating, although in this case it's mostly because the film is actually a sparky rom-com with occasional slasher scenes. The film sees its breakout star Jessica Rothe play a hard-partying sorority girl who is killed by a masked slasher again and again and again, as she gets stuck in an interminable Groundhog Day meets Halloween time loop. The bloodless deaths are really just an excuse to ground her romance to All the Boys I've Loved Before star Israel Broussard, allowing this sweet and charming surprise hit to both do justice to the slasher subgenre and affectionately parody its cliches, all without earning an R rating. Number 2, Lights Out. Stylistically similar to the James Wan produced Insidious/Conjuring/Annabelle horror movie universe, it's no surprise that 2016's Lights Out managed to nab its Helmer a seat in the director's chair for 2018's Annabelle creation. This 2016 adaptation of Shazam director David F. Sandberg's viral short of the same name tells the story of a strange monster which can only attack you under the cover of darkness, resulting in some terrifyingly tense sequences where characters desperately attempt to stay within the relative safety of light. Of course, so this addendum also means the monster's attacks are unseen, with only grisly sound design cluing the viewer into their brutality. As a result, the film manages to get by on expertly crafted tense sequences and an inspired anti-villain design rather than R-rated scares, resulting in a slice of PG-13 horror which is arguably scarier than a lot of its R-rated competitors. Is it hampered by an inevitable cliched backstory? Sure, but so are R-rated efforts in the subverted ghost story horror subgenre. Number 1. The Others. It's bizarre to think that Wild at War director Alejandro Amenbar's elegiac slow burn mystery The Others earned itself a PG rating when the Helmer's breakout flick Thesis was a gory psychological thriller which centered around the extremely R-rated topic of snuff films. That said, his next film was The Seaside, a poignant true life inspirational story, so maybe the man just doesn't want to be pigeonholed by Hollywood. In any case, this 2001 Nicole Kidman vehicle doesn't need gore for its killer twist to land, thanks to an incredible performance from its leading lady. As a mother gradually losing her grip on reality in the misty countryside seclusion of her manor home, Kidman veers between icy reservation and wild-eyed terror as she comes closer to uncovering the truth about herself and her sickly children. As tragic as it is terrifying, this PG-13 horror features a handful of genuinely heart-stopping scenes, which, although memorably scary, are free from the sort of gore that would earn it a higher rating. Meanwhile, its bleak but beautiful ending is more memorably chilling than many more explicit efforts from the genre. And there we go, the 10 best PG-13 horror films. Make sure you check them out, and if you already have, let us know your favourites down below in the comment section. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, click that subscribe button. But for now, I have been Kirsten Ria from WhatCulture, and I will see you in the next video.